Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones. And the topic today, of course, Carolina football. Tar Heels open up in 2 nights at Minnesota, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Fox TV. The Golden Gophers 6-7 a year ago. Tar Heels 8-5 a year ago. Beat the Gophers 31-13 in Chapel Hill. I'm really excited about this game for 1,000 reasons. From a journalistic standpoint, the last month has been gnawing on the same stuff over and over. We have tried to be as creative as we possibly can to bring you the variety of storylines and information and tidbits and so on about this program. When we've spoken to 23 players, we've talked to every position coach and the coordinators on the roster and on the staff and the head coach multiple times, several times. If you go back to my one-on-one interview with Mac in July, that's 5 conversations with Mac. 5 times we've had Mac. So that's a lot. So I'm excited that the game is here because I'm excited that we're going to have something new and fresh to talk about. But I also like it from a football guy standpoint that North Carolina is going to Minnesota to play. I covered the Tar Heels in 2016 when they went to Illinois to play. I was at that game. And there was a guy dressed as Red Grange in the press box at Illinois, by the way. That was one of the coolest things I've seen in a press box anywhere. I love games like that. I think this is cooler because Minnesota's been a better program than Illinois had been for a while leading up to that game. And since then, Minnesota's had some pretty good teams under PJ Fleck. But I like non-conference games like this. I despise FCS games. I got nothing against FCS teams, but we learn nothing. And now with the college football playoff being so important and being 12 teams deep, we need as much intel on these teams and their conferences as we can get to make quality decisions based on who is a part of the 12-team playoff. And really, with the G5 getting 1 team, that leaves 11 spots. And then there's 4 power conference champions, the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and ACC. That leaves 7 at-large spots for non-G5s, for the power conferences. So you need as much intel as possible. And that's why we need games like this. And I also think for North Carolina football, it's good to have games like this. Play quality opponents on the road, get home and homes. They've done a solid job of it over the years, better than a lot of other programs in the ACC. And they've got some coming up. And I want to talk about some of those games and just kind of express why I think it's really important to have intersectional games between the power conferences. It gives us the barometer like I was talking about. I think it raises fan interest. And I think it's the kind of thing where the barometer isn't just for your league, but the other league. Let's say Carolina beats Minnesota, or Carolina beats Minnesota. It's a good win for Carolina. It looks good at that night. But let's say 2 months down the road, Minnesota's like 7-1 in the Big Ten. Man, that thing is going to stand out. It's going to keep pushing them forward. You kind of look at it a little bit like you do with basketball schedules, because we have a tournament now. So I think that makes it more important to play these games, because the bottom line is they could lose to Minnesota, Carolina. They could lose to Minnesota. They could lose to Charlotte. They could lose to Central. They could lose to JMU. And they went out in the ACC and win in Charlotte. They're going to get a bye in the CFP. So we're in a different world now. So I think scheduling games like this are absolutely mandatory. So this is what the Tar Heels have coming ahead. Next season, they go to Central Florida. They start a home and home with TCU. They played TCU in a home and home back in the 90s when Mac was at Carolina before. They beat them at Chapel Hill, went and pounded them in Fort Worth. So they host TCU next year. They go to Central Florida. I like that. That Central Florida game, I think, is a replacement for the one that was canceled because of COVID a few years ago. In 26, they return the game to TCU. They go to Fort Worth. Really cool stadium. I recommend that trip to any Carolina fans. I was in that stadium back in 2022 when I went to Fort Worth to cover the Tar Heels in the NCAA tournament in basketball. I went over to TCU. Stadium was open. I walked right in there. Beautiful stadium. It's not massive, but it's beautiful. Make the trip. They also go to UConn that year. They're not a power conference team, but it's kind of a a road non-conference game a lot of ACC teams are lining up to play here in the next few years. The following year in 2027, the Tar Heels go to Purdue. Yeah, I've been in that stadium too. When Carolina in 21 played in West Lafayette in the NCAA tournament, I walked right into Ross-Ade Stadium, and TCU's got a nicer stadium, no doubt about it. I actually watched from a distance a little bit of one of Purdue's spring football practices. I do like the Purdue helmets. Those are cool. I like that P, that logo. But that's a good game to play because it's at a Big Ten team. It's a barometer game. And you would hope, if you're a Carolina fan, that Purdue would have a good year because it helps Carolina. In 28, the Tar Heels play at South Carolina, and I'm really glad about that. I'm tired of Carolina and South Carolina playing in Charlotte. It just doesn't work for me. Play home and home. Play on campus. Go to Williams-Brice. Have the whole scene going on. Have the Gamecocks come to Keenan. They were there in 08 or 09, something like that. I can't remember. It was one of those 2 years I covered the game, and that was great. It was an event. You want home games to be events. If you can get a couple of home games that are events every year, that's a big thing. I think playing power conference teams at home and on the road are events. So I'm going to come up with, here's some more ideas. And by the way, Purdue returns the game to Chapel Hill in 2031. So that's 4 years later. I've got 5 teams in the Big Ten, 5 teams in the SEC that I would love to see Carolina play a home and home with. Be cool to go to their places. It'd be cool to have them come to Chapel Hill. Some cooler than others. I'd like to know what you guys think about these, and I'd like to know if you would add somebody else. And I'm doing just those 2 leagues because they're the big 2 everyone loves to talk about. I don't think there's a great deal of value out of playing the Big 12 right now. I think if you're going to do it, play SEC, play Big 10. Here are the 5 from the Big 10, or 5 from the SEC. Ole Miss would be great. The Grove, of course. But I think there would be some comparable things. I mean, Ole Miss has been pretty good lately. Kiffin's got a nice thing going right now. But I think it'd be a pretty cool matchup, Carolina versus Ole Miss. Arkansas. It'd be cool to go to Arkansas, see a game there, especially if the Razorbacks are pretty good. They've been pretty good at times and throughout their history, really good at times in their history. And I think that would be a neat little home and home for the Tar Heels to play. I think Arkansas rolling into Keenan would be a pretty cool thing. Kentucky. Carolina played Kentucky in a home and home. Goodness, in the 70s or late in the 70s, they played them in a home and home. And I know that Kentucky doesn't carry the same name, but Kentucky's been a pretty solid program under Mark Stoops there in Lexington. Been a pretty solid program. I think that would be an interesting home and home series. I think fans would be excited about that. Florida would be a really good one. Carolina played Florida as well in the early 70s in a home and home series. In fact, the return game, I think, was played in Jacksonville, and Carolina won that game. So I know this because I've done a ton of research over non-conference games before to come up with as much content as we possibly can in the off season. And the 5th one from the SEC I think would be really cool would be Texas A&M. How would anybody not want to go see a game at Texas A&M with the unique pageantry that they have? But I also think A&M rolling into Chapel Hill would be a pretty cool thing. The Big Ten teams, the 5 in the Big Ten, I think would be really cool to see home and homes with. Iowa. Carolina should be able to hold Iowa's offense to a handful of points because everybody else does. I think that'd be cool. Iowa's had a nice history. They've only had 2 head coaches since I've been following college football, basically. And I think it'd be kind of a neat-looking game. It'd be pretty cool seeing Iowa roll into Kenan Stadium. How about Michigan State? That's an up-and-down program. That's a yo-yo program. Sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they stink. But they still have a decent enough name, decent enough history. That Green rolls into Chapel Hill. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think heading out to East Lansing for a game. By the way, Iowa, at the end of the 3rd quarter, when they waved to the students or to the kids in the Cancer Center, that would be an amazing, amazing thing to see in person. Nebraska has become to college football kind of like they're the Indiana now, like Indiana is in basketball. Indiana's probably been a little bit better in basketball than Nebraska in football, but there's some similarities there, some commonalities where both were awesome at one point and now just aren't close to what they used to be. There are a lot of Carolina fans, college football fans that might be under 30 that don't even understand a world with Nebraska being what a lot of old guys like me know Nebraska was for my entire life until about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. They were it so often. I think that'd be a cool home and home. Go to Lincoln. They sell it out still. They're very passionate. They are the team in that state. And I think if the Cornhuskers rolled into Chapel Hill, that'd be a really cool thing as well. Penn State. Now, Penn State's a better program than the ones I've noted. But this almost happened. My understanding is this almost happened a while back. There used to be those Monday night games on Labor Day in FedEx Stadium in the D.C. area where the Redskins or Commanders play. Carolina Penn State in a game like that would have been really cool. Now, I think a Carolina Penn State home and home would be cool. Could have been an ACC game a long time ago if a commissioner of the ACC back then would have had the foresight to make that happen, because it could have happened. But Penn State, Carolina would be really cool. I think to see those unis coming to Chapel Hill would be really neat. See Carolina go up there. I've seen a game in person up there at Penn State. It's an amazing experience. I would think it would be really cool to see the Carolina blue against the Penn State blue up there. I think that'd be some pretty cool color contrast. And the other one, a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to throw Maryland out there. The reason is because I think enough time has passed that why not? I think it'd be pretty good for Carolina to play a football game in the D.C. area. They haven't done that in a long time, other than the bowl game against Temple back in 2019. Play a football game up there. Play Maryland up. I mean, Maryland, they've already done the Indiana thing in the late 90s. They did Illinois. They're doing Minnesota right now. They got Purdue coming up. So why not Maryland? It's a close game that fans can get to. It's in the D.C. area. It's a good trip. And Terrapins are okay. They're kind of fighting to get past okay, but the Terrapins are okay. I don't know how much that would excite Carolina fans. I don't know how the fans would react to something like that. I know that when the one time they played Maryland basketball since the Terrapins left for the Big Ten, it was in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, and it was a wild atmosphere at the Dean Dome. And that was a good Maryland team. And that was only a few years after they left, so the atmosphere was wild. The appetite for that game was big. I don't know what it would be like for football, but I think it'd be cool. And for me, I wouldn't have to hop on a plane to go cover it. I could just drive 4.5 hours back home, stay in Northern Virginia with my friends, see my friends, and then go over a couple of football games. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, that's what I wanted to get into. I think I'm a big schedule guy. I love seeing who teams are playing. I love looking ahead at potential schedules. I'm a big proponent, like I said, of power conference teams playing power conference teams. Let's learn as much as we can about these teams. And if you're not going to have a playoff team, play a really good schedule, entertain your fans. People are paying so much money nowadays for tickets, for gear, for collectives. They're asking for more. Well, bring some good teams into the stadium. Go play a few good ones on the road. Get some pretty cool trips. Make it fun. Make it exciting. Make it more interesting. These kinds of games will do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about heading up to Minneapolis in a couple of days. Actually, today is Tuesday that we're running this. So when you're watching this, listening to this, I might actually be in the air right now, heading to Minneapolis. I hope I am. Hope I get there, and then hope to see a game. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Tar Heels will be like and seeing a new stadium in person for the first time. That's always exciting for me. Anybody that knows me, my wife thinks it's kind of weird. I veer off and go look at I went to Stetson's football stadium one time. That's how weird I am. But that's my deal, man. I cannot wait to see Huntington Bank Stadium in person. Let me know what you think, guys. Who would you add to that schedule? Would you play Big 12 teams? Am I being silly limiting to just the Big 10 and the SEC? Tell me who you would play. Let us know, everybody. Anyway, make sure that you like this video. You subscribe to our channel if you haven't. You hit notification bells so you get updates every time we upload. And remember, for $8.33 a month, for 1 year subscription, you could be a Carolina Tar Heel insider too. Thanks for stopping by.